Hi and welcome to module number 11. In this module, we'll be covering all the elements that go into making a well-designed and well-written CV that highlights your skills and competencies. We'll also be covering some tips and tricks that will allow your resume to stand out and to grab recruiters or HR's attention. Also, I'll be sharing with you some good and bad grammar for CV, and in the end, we'll be talking about some bad practices and things you should never put in your CV. Just to clarify, you may hear a CV referred to as a resume. That is because in Europe we use the term CV, abbreviated Latin curriculum vitae. But the thing is that most Americans use another term, resume, and some of them even don't know the term CV. So please take this fact into consideration if you're applying to some US-based company. Okay, so let's get down to business. Here we go, lesson number 1 on vocabulary, and I'll be talking about some key points you have to keep in mind every time you write your CV. First of all, the aim of your CV is to get you an interview. So be sure you focus on your key skills, which you can prove in the interview. It's important to only include job-relevant skills. For example, if you're applying for a React developer position, make sure you mention your React skills right at the beginning of your resume. Also be sure to take any outdated information or obsolete technologies off your resume. The thing is that you have to keep in mind that resumes are first checked by recruiters or HR managers who don't have that extensive technical background. So make your CV clear and easy to read. They need to be able to see that you are a good fit for the position within the first 5 seconds. That's why it's so crucial to highlight your relevant skill set right up top and include the keywords from the job posting. So let's have a look at the summary of what I've just shared with you, and I want to draw your attention to some interesting vocabulary I've used. So I've said that it's important to include only job-relevant skills. And when I say job-relevant skills, I mean the skills which are suitable and which are related to this particular job. Also, there is a very common expression in this sentence, in this case, to apply for something. Yeah, so when we apply for something, we usually write some probably formal letter, or we fill in some form in order to ask for it. Yeah, in this case, we apply for a job. Yeah, we apply for a position. I've also mentioned that you need to take any outdated skills and obsolete technologies off your resume. So when I say obsolete technologies, I mean that these technologies are already outdated and they are not used, they are not needed anymore because some other better and newer technologies have replaced them. And to take off your resume means to remove from your resume, yeah, to delete. And you might say that recruiters or HR managers, they don't have an extensive technical background. Yeah, in this case, an extensive technical background means a lot of technical background or much technical background. And HR managers or recruiters, they don't have that much of technical background. That is why they need to be able to see that you are a good fit for the position within the first 5 seconds. So when I say a good fit, I mean a perfect match, yeah, the best candidate for this position. And to sum up, it's very crucial to highlight your relevant skill set right up top. Yeah, so to highlight means to emphasize, to attract somebody's attention. And skill set is a range of some things, a range of skills you are good at. Welcome to lesson number 3 on pronunciation. And today in this lesson I would like to focus on the words and expressions you quite often use in your CVs, but you don't need to pronounce them. But then later during the job interview, quite often you mispronounce them. So let's have a look at them. The first one is CV, CV. Here I would like to draw your attention to the fact that we stress the second word, CV. CV. The stress is on the second word, CV. Repeat after me, CV. The next word is resume, resume, resume. It's not resume, in this case it's resume. The next word is template, template, template. Here I would like you to focus on the last syllable. It's at, template. It's not template, Many people mispronounce it. They say template, but it's incorrect. It's template, template, at, template. The next word is certificate, certificate, certificate. Again, at, certificate, certificate. The word number 5 is about quite often at the level of English, and it's intermediate, intermediate, intermediate. So it's not intermediate, it's intermediate, intermediate. Repeat after me, intermediate. Okay. The next word is determined, determined, determined. Unfortunately, a lot of people say determined, but no, forget about it. It's determined, determined, determined. The next one is analysis, analysis, analysis. The word number 8 is diversified, diversified. So it's diversified, not diversified, it's diversified, diversified, diversified. And the last one is supervised, 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 not super, it's supervised, supervised. Okay, so now let's repeat one more time. CV, resume, template, certificate, intermediate, determined, analysis, diversified, supervised. So now it's your turn to record yourself. I'm looking forward to your recordings. So watch my video as many times as you need until you pronounce all those words correctly. Okay? Welcome to lesson number 4 on soft skills, and in this lesson we're going to learn how to write a professional skills summary. Your skills summary, also known as professional summary, is a quick introduction of yourself as a professional. Its main aim is to whet the recruiter's appetite, to make them want to read the rest of your CV. Think about your skills summary as your personal elevator pitch, the one we've covered in previous modules, but a bit shorter. The length of your skills summary is of critical importance. If it is longer than 2 lines, no one is going to read it. Also, you might want to be sure that you use strong descriptive words and you avoid too general words, or for example those passive and general verbs about which we talked a bit earlier. Treat your skills summary as a marketing slogan, so you are trying to sell yourself to the recruiter or to the HR manager. Obviously, you need to customize your summary for every job posting. And today I've prepared for you some formula you have to keep in mind when writing your personal skills summary. So let's have a look at it. So you want to start with attention-grabbing adjectives and then follow that up with 1 or 2 key things that are most notable about yourself. Ideally, you should mention something that will show that you're motivated and have potential for growth. Plus, you can also mention 1 or 2 your key hard skills. For example, let's have a look at the first case. We have an introduction, highly motivated web developer. Then, we have a key hard skill that makes a person stand out, specializing in and the last sentence shows that the person is motivated to keep learning and growing. And reading this kind of summary makes you think that the owner of the summary isn't only good at what they do, but also easy and interesting to work with. And now let's have a look at the second case. The second one doesn't follow the formula precisely, but it still works. It's short, to the point, and uses somewhat original language. For example, software that drives change. And this original language describes what value that person can add to the company. It is not just a generic statement like great team player, looking for challenging work, it's something new. And now let's have a look at some real case I've taken from a real resume. Let's have some case study. So I want you to have a look at this example of skills summary and to think what's wrong with it. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to think about it, so read it and try to find the mistakes. Try to figure out what's wrong with it. Why isn't it okay? First of all, it's too long. Secondly, it's boring and it uses too many generic buzzwords like self-motivated, team player, communication skills. Boring, it's boring. And finally, it's actually 3 separate summaries combined into one. Each sentence describes something totally different. That is why instead of doing this, you might want to write just one strong, concise summary that will show you in the best light. For example, in this case, what this person could do is just take out the first 2 sentences and keep the last sentence, the one I've highlighted with red color. I hope you won't make the same mistake. And now it's time to practice. Let's move on to the next lesson and let's put into practice what we've just discussed. In this podcast, we'll be talking about the structure of a CV. You might want to have the following sections on your CV in the order I'll be mentioning them. The first section is your contact information. It should include your name, your contact details, email, mobile, etc., and the links to your GitHub and GitLab profiles. Don't put a link to your social media other than LinkedIn. The second section is your professional summary. We'll be talking about it in more detail in our soft skill lesson, but in a nutshell, it is a quick 1-2 sentence description of yourself as a professional and the job you're looking to obtain. The next one, your skills section, which includes a list of all related skills and technologies you have experience in, languages, frameworks, microservices, etc. Be careful with describing soft skills. It's best to avoid using buzzwords like self-motivated, flexible, good team player, and so on. All these qualities will be expected of you. What you can do instead is create a separate section and name it soft skills. There you can list those areas that you are good at, just as it is done on LinkedIn. For example, leadership, problem solving, time management, etc. Keep in mind that if you highlight certain soft skills, HR manager can ask you questions related to those soft skills in an interview. For instance, if you put decision making under the soft skills section, they can ask you, tell me about a time you had to make a difficult decision. How did you handle that situation? So be prepared to back your soft skills up with stories from personal experience. When it comes to the next section, work experience, it's best to describe it in reverse chronological order and indicate how long you worked at each job. Provide around 3 up to 6 points for each job, describing what you did and what you achieved in that position. If you had promotions within the company, for example, you started as an intern and got promoted to senior engineer, then just put your last job title, senior engineer in this case, and describe your most important and relevant achievements in the bullet points. If you have any pet projects, you should definitely include them on your CV. Make sure to attach links to each one or just make the project titles clickable and provide a brief description of the project and which technologies you used to build it. Education is the least interesting part of your CV, so put it as the last section. You don't have to list out all the diplomas you have and all the certificates you got, just include the ones that are most relevant to the job you're applying for. Okay, that's it. So I hope it was useful. And now let's move on to some of the CV don'ts. Some things you should definitely avoid putting on your resume if you don't want to reduce your chances of getting an interview. The first mistake is revealing more information about yourself than you have to. Keep in mind, sometimes less is more, so don't give away too much about yourself. Leave out such information as your address, graduation year, age, etc. Also, don't disclose your hobbies and favorite activities. I know that at first glance, you may think that if you describe some healthy hobbies which you have in your free time, like fitness, cooking, traveling, learning languages, you are showing to your prospective employer that you are a happy, you are vibrant, you are a motivated person. But at the same time, this will only allow people to assume things about you that may not be true. For example, if you say in your CV that you love traveling, people might think that, oh yeah, this person is fond of traveling, so probably he or she would love to work remotely all the time and won't treat his or her job as a priority. Same thing with side hustles. If you're doing some freelancing on the side, it's better not to let people know about it upfront. This again will make the employer question whether you are going to take this job seriously or not. Okay, so now let's have a look at some phrases and some words I've used. So the first one is to disclose. Disclose your hobbies. So when you disclose something, you let other people know about it. Yeah, so in this case, about your hobbies. The prospective employer means your possible future employer. And when we assume something, we start believing that something is true. So for example, in this case, your prospective employer might believe, might take some things as true ones, about you. And when I say side hustles, I mean your freelance project. And by saying that you shouldn't let people know about your side hustles upfront, I mean at the very beginning, from the very beginning, you shouldn't let them know about this. The second very common mistake is connected to putting your picture. So please keep in mind, it's okay to put your picture on your CV, but it's not okay to put your picture on your resume. I hope you got it. The thing is that in the United States, letting your prospective employer know what you look like is considered to be a bad practice. So be mindful of that. The idea behind it is that by putting your picture, you give your prospective employer a chance to discriminate against you based on your appearance, on your age, and other non-job related things. Also, a lot of people like using progress bars when describing their skills, but please don't use progress bars. Don't set yourself up for failure like that. So why are the progress bars so terrible? Number one, when HR sees something like that, they are not going to look at your strengths. They are going to look at your weaknesses. For example, if your job requires some experience with, let's say, Angular, and you rate your Angular skills as 50%, HR will pass on you. Secondly, it's not a valid way of measuring how good you are at something, because different people will have totally different understanding of what, let's say, 95% is or of what 71% is. For example, for you, 71% may sound as a good score, but for the person who looks at your resume, it can mean something totally different. So the main point here is that instead of rating yourself with the help of progress bars, just outline your skills in your skills section and then tell about your results and how you used them in the work experience section. Hi and welcome to bonus lesson. And here in this lesson, I would like to share with you some tips which will help your CV to stand out. So tip number one, you have to back up your achievements with facts. So what I mean here is when writing about your work experience, avoid listing out your job duties and responsibilities. Instead, focus on describing the outcomes and the results you achieved with the help of your skills. Usually, HRs want to see how you can benefit the company, how you can benefit the employer. So you can look at it this way. You are not applying to the company, you're applying to the product. So think about how you can use your skills to improve their product or to improve the services they are providing. For example, instead of saying just created React components, you can say created 5 React components to design scalable web apps. So the bottom line is always include some factual proof, some numbers or links to your projects. So tip number 2, use active descriptive words. So what I mean here, in every language we have passive words and active words. Passive words are more general and they don't describe some specific action. For example, work, do, make. These are general words. So I would recommend you to avoid using general words in your CV. And instead of them, try using active words. Here on my screen, you can see some examples of active verbs which you can use instead of passive ones. For example, optimized, improved, designed, developed, implemented, modified, created, built, oversaw. See that these words are more specific and they can really describe your contribution to the project, what you actually did and what kind of outcome, what kind of result you have. I have some practice tasks for you about the active verbs. So I want you to think about what kind of word combinations you can make up using these active verbs. For example, I've taken the word optimized. So what can we optimize? We can optimize the production process, for example. Also, I've taken the word improved. So what can we improve? We can improve performance, we can improve quality, we can improve productivity. So please do the same with the rest of the verbs listed here, and you will expand your vocabulary with some cool word combinations and phrases which you can use in your CV. And the last tip is about creating a good UX of your CV.
Hi there, and welcome to our final module on the English for Tech course. Today we're speaking about job interview, and I'm going to teach you everything that I think you should know to nail your job interview in English. And of course, let me first of all give you a quick overview of what to expect in this module. We will boost your vocabulary with new phrases and idioms, of course. We will work on your pronunciation. I will talk about proper intonation that you should have when you are answering job interview questions. That's really important. And this information will help you sound better in English. Also, grammar. I will share some information about proper grammar when answering popular job interview questions, some life hacks of what to pay attention to in order to speak grammatically correct when you answer those questions. And soft skills. I will talk about small talk, and I will share some examples how small talk can help you, succeed in your job interview. And of course, we will wrap it up by practicing answering most popular job interview questions. And I have prepared some bonuses for you in this module, and I have interviewed one of our native English speakers slash Ruby developer, Karuna, and Karuna is going to share some tips and tricks on job interview, like how to nail job interview. And also technically this interview came out really friendly, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. When we need to prepare for a job interview, the first thing that most of us would do is finding out what type of questions they are going to be asked in a job interview. And there are three popular types that interviewers typically ask you in a job interview. Number one, skill-related or technical questions. Number two, behavioral questions. And number three, brain teasers. Let me tell you a little bit about each of the types. So the first type is about your hard skills, right? So depending on what job you're applying for, these questions are going to be related specifically to your job and to test how well you can do your job. The second type, behavioral questions, those are, I would say that one of the most important. Of course, the first type, skill-related questions are important, but in more jobs, behavioral questions are the questions that your potential employer wants to ask you the most, because by asking behavioral questions, they will find out what type of person you are, how well you fit into the company culture, and how well you fit into the team, right? Because at the end of the day, we work with other people, and if we can't work with other people, it means that we won't be able to do our job well. That is why make sure you prepare equally well for technical questions and behavioral or soft skills questions. And the third type, brain teasers, those are the questions that would check your logic, way of thinking. However, I would say that today I'm not going to talk about brain teasers because they are not that popular in the tech job interview, because usually they will check your logic when they ask you technical questions, right? Your skill related questions. Now let's talk about how to answer popular questions during your job interview. And we'll start with number one, which is the most popular and which is answered typically not exactly how it's supposed to be answered. And I'm talking about the question, tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself is a very popular question, but I would say that 90% of people make a mistake when they start answering the question. And the mistake is that they want to introduce themselves. They want to talk about their age, where they live, their family, their hobbies, their kids. Oh my God, really? Like, why? This is a job interview, right? This is not like tell me about yourself, just like generally about your life. For a job interview, number one, you don't introduce yourself because this is not logical. They already have your CV, so they know your name, right? They already know how old you are. They already know which school you went to. Like, this is some basic information that they have in your CV already. So you don't talk about this. Instead, tell me about yourself. This is the question where you need to relate your skills and yourself to the position you're applying for. Relate yourself to the company. This is also the good time when you can boast, like you praise yourself a little bit, you boast about skills that are important, that might be important for this position and for this company. And also, this is the question where you can show that you are prepared for the interview, right? You are prepared and you did your homework. And that's, I hope you remember this idiom, do your homework. Yeah, you have prepared. You have prepared by researching the company. So you can research the company prior, and then you can talk about yourself, telling how you meet the company's requirements, for example, or maybe how you share values, right? You can say like, hey, like you guys value this and this, and I totally share it with you. All right, let's take a look at my example of a good answer to the question, tell me about yourself. I'm a full stack developer, proficient in designing user interactions on websites. Proficient in means good at, right? I'm experienced in, I'm good at something. Developing and designing APIs and ensuring cross-platform optimization. When I read this answer, I want you to notice how I pronounce tech terms, right? I mean, we have covered these tech terms during the full course. Now is the time for you to notice how they are pronounced correctly and check if you are pronouncing them correctly as well. Alrighty, next one. I also have a background in design, which allows me to feel in my element when I'm collaborating with UI, UX designers on implementing new design features and understand their perspective, which facilitates communication, right? So have a background in these expressions you already know. However, what I want you to notice here is the proper preposition usage, right? So we say have a background, article a, in design. Now, there's a good idiom, feel in my element means that you are happy because you are doing something that you're good at and something that you like, right? Next one, I love designing robust applications. Cool application, robust, right? Progressive, that create an extraordinary user experience. Use the word extraordinary when you talk about your skills. That's a very popular word, and that's a good word to use to describe your skills, right? I believe in life learning and always try to find more efficient ways of doing something. I think this is very important to mention that you are a lifelong learner, right? So you believe in developing yourself and growing as a professional. So to summarize it, when you answer, tell me about yourself question, keep it job related. Don't keep it kids related and family related, okay? Job related, focus on most relevant accomplishments that relate to the job description and to the company where you're applying for. Keep it short and engaging, okay? Moving on to the next popular question. What are your strengths, right? I mean, it's pretty easy to talk about your strength, yeah, because we can definitely see them. It's more complicated to talk about your weaknesses. That's going to be our next question to discuss. But first, let's see how you can talk about your strengths. Here is a good example of what you can say, and pay attention to the bolded expressions and words, because I want you to use them when you are preparing an answer, your answer for this question. So let's see. I believe I bring a customer-centered perspective to the table. Customer-centered perspective, this is what every client wants to hear from a technical professional. So like if you say this phrase to a client, to a potential employer, they will love it because after all, you're creating a product for a customer. So you have to be customer centric. I'm not just focused on making the customer happy. I think critically to come up with the optimal technical solutions that would address their pain points and fit their business needs. Again, you are thinking about the client and how to make the product, fit perfectly technically. Next, I also make sure to set realistic estimates. They would love that too, because if your job requires you to give some estimates for the project, this is something that you want to mention if you can do it really well. And manage expectations from very early on to eliminate any potential misunderstandings and bottlenecks in the future. To eliminate means to get rid of, right? And bottlenecks, what is a bottleneck? So imagine a bottle, right? And a bottleneck is, what part of the bottle is the bottleneck? It's the narrowest part, right? So there is a wide part and the narrowest part, and technically the narrowest part is the part where you can get stuck or something can get stuck, right? So that's the bottleneck. So the point where you get stuck, for example. Okay, so use these expressions when answering what are your strengths question. And let me summarize. When you answer what are your strengths question, focus on the value that you can add to the product, okay? Again, it has to be like your answer has to be relevant to the company you're applying for and to the position. So you cannot prepare one template answer and use it for any company, for any position. No, you have to relate specifically to this position and focus on their product, not on any product, but specifically the product where you are going to be working on. Be specific and think of any unique knowledge or any unique skills that you have. And if you think that you are not a unique person or there is nothing unique about your job and what you do, you're mistaken. You are mistaken because we are all unique. It's just difficult for many of us to see that in ourselves. That is why if you're struggling finding out how unique you are, you should spend some time with a piece of paper and a pen and writing out all the skills that you possess. Start with good ones, right? Since we're talking about your strengths. So make a list of all your strengths and then you can find out which of these skills are quite unique. Now, one of the most intriguing questions, I get a lot of questions from my students on how to answer what are your weaknesses. Yeah, what are your weaknesses? You don't want to sound super weak when answering this question, but still you want to sound like professional and you don't want to lose your reputation by giving the wrong answer. But don't try to look perfect. We all human beings, we're not perfect, okay? But you have to pick something that you can show you are working on and you are ready to improve. Let's say if you are a Python developer, it's probably not going to be a good idea to say that you're not very confident with Django, right? However, you need to pick something that is more broad scope, and you also need to show that you're currently working on improving this skill. Let's take a look at my example over here. I can be a bit shy to speak in meetings. I think a lot of developers and a lot of tech professionals are like that. And I think for a technical professional, it's an okay answer. So let me expand more. I'm often under the impression that my ideas will be harshly judged, strongly judged, even when I know that won't be the case, even when I know that won't be the situation, right? I'm working on building up increasing my confidence and not being afraid to pitch or give my thoughts on an issue. Recently, I've been attending speaking clubs where I get to talk to other people in the tech field and learn to make compelling arguments, like great arguments, great statements. It's still work in progress, but I feel like I've improved a lot in the past a couple of months. So you see, what you're doing here. You're talking about your weakness, which is you're shy in meetings, but you have a full description of what you're doing and what has been done in order to overcome this obstacle, and in order to improve. And this is what you need to do when answering what are your weaknesses question. Show your self-awareness, right? When you are telling the person what your weakness is, you're showing your self-awareness, right? If you say like, oh, I don't think I have any weaknesses, really, that's not true. Focus on your ability to learn and improve. It's not enough to say that, okay, I have this weakness. You need to draw the listener's attention to the fact what you are doing to improve the situation, and just show them step by step what you are actually doing. Like in my example, you are attending a speaking club, which by the way, you can attend our speaking club with Karuna, our developer who is also teaching English. And again, if you need to feel more confident, this is what you do, right? You find the community and you start practicing. Let's talk about answering behavioral questions. Here is one of them. Tell us about a challenge you've encountered on a project. A challenge you've encountered, it means a challenge you faced on a project, right? How did you deal with it? And here, my suggestion is, when you need to answer such questions where you need to tell stories, use the STAR technique when you answer. What is a STAR technique? It's first you describe a situation, then you talk about the task that you had to complete, then you talk about the action, A for the action, what you actually did, and then you share the result. And here's what you can say. The situation, the project I found most challenging and rewarding was hand translating the assembly language code, art and music for the arcade game Mortal Kombat. That's the situation. Now the task that he had, so that the whole game fits inside of a joystick and maintained its original gameplay and timing. So that was the task, right? So now the action, what this person did. The challenge was that even though this project was done with full cooperation of the game's makers, there was no source artwork for the game's art assets. So I ended up having to reverse engineer all of the art's assets from ROM images. So that was the action that the person had to do. Now, the outcome, the result here. We did the project in a few months with one programmer, me, one artist, and the contract and services of a great sound guy. I got great reviews and was a bit hit with the fans of the original game. So I've done other quality challenges projects, but this one was the first that came to my mind because of the pride I could take in the results. So the bottom line here is that when you answer the questions, where you need to show the case that you worked on, for example, right, your successful case, etc., use the STAR technique when giving the answer. So once again, describe the situation, describe your task, describe the actions you've taken, and talk about the results. So 4 things, 4 paragraphs you should have in your head. So now, next time you're preparing for a question where you need to talk about your accomplishments, right? Your successful cases, make sure you have 4 paragraphs and you cover them in the STAR technique way. A few of my students have been asked this question at their job interviews. How do you deal with stress? Especially now in our days, you know, stress is everything, and your potential employer wants to know how well you can deal with this. So this is what you can say. I try to organize my tasks the best I can and keep the team in the loop and let them know if I'm going to be able to meet the deadline. So keep the team in the loop, meaning keep the team updated. Meet the deadline, it's be on time with your task. If I get stuck on something, right, if you are blocked, right, on something, I know there is someone on my team who is qualified to tackle that task, who can solve that task and has time for it. I might ask them to take over it. To take over it, it's like to be in charge of this task. I also make sure to take adequate breaks to avoid burn out, right? So adequate breaks. So here, when you are answering the questions regarding stress and how you deal with difficult situations, you need to be realistic when answering the question. You need to be proactive. I mean, you need to show that you are ready to take actions when necessary. Like in my answer, you are ready to ask your team to help you if you see that you are not meeting the deadline or that you are about to burn out. And show good organizational skills and good teamwork skills. Remember, when in a job interview, you have to show that you are a really good team player because the company values that a lot. Don't answer the questions showing that you are the one who can do it. I mean, you will be doing it, right? You will be doing your job, but it's important to show that you can work as a part of the team, right? And sometimes, you know, some companies, when they are hiring people, the team makes the decision. I've like a lot of English for IT clients are doing this. When they hire in a new developer for the team makes the decision, not even the manager, because after all, the team will be working with you. And another question about your future. Yeah, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time, for example, or what are your goals for the future? This is what you can say. I'm hoping to become a product owner in 2-3 years' time. What really important to me though is to be able to keep working with cutting edge technologies and create great products. This is what I can see myself doing in the future. I'm really driven person and I'm really excited about how far we can take this product. So you see, this answer sounds super upbeat and like enthusiastic, don't you agree? And when you answer questions about your future, you have to show that you have a career plan, right? Don't be vague here. Yeah, don't say like, oh, I don't know, I really have to think about it. I mean, if you say that, it's okay, but I, as an employer, for example, I would like my employee to have goals and to show me that they have the plan, because if you don't show it, it means that maybe it's like will be hard for you to plan the project even, you know. Also show enthusiasm, right? Talking about the future, you have to be enthusiastic because you are, you know, looking forward to better, to something better, to doing something better, to creating something better, etc. And talk about what you can achieve in this company, right? Like, again, the job interview has to be relevant to the company and to the position you're applying for. So don't make a mistake that these questions are about you and you just need to answer about you. No, these questions are about you and how you relate to the company, to the project, to the position. So when answering any job interview question, think about how your answer is relevant to the company, to the position, and how your answer can show the company that you are the perfect fit for them. Let me share with you some tips on how to nail a job interview in English. Number one, research the company. It's very important to research the company before you come to a job interview. You have to show them that you know what the company is doing, and you have to research their values, and you have to show how your values relate to their values. That's one of the most important things, because if you research the company before the interview, it will be very easy for you to answer behavioral questions, to answer soft skills questions. Yeah, it will be easier for you to talk about the project where you're going to work, right? And also you will know how to talk about the team and working on the team. Next, it will be great if you can turn the interview into a conversation, right? We all know that the job interview is about you coming in and waiting for the questions from the interviewer. However, that's a typical scenario and everybody knows about it. But not many people can turn an interview, like when you are being asked the questions all the time, and not everyone can turn the interview into a conversation. Not the interview, when you are asking questions and the interviewer is asking questions, and it feels like you are having a discussion. This way, if it happens, if you can manage this way you can easily build rapport with the interviewer, and you will talk to the interviewer pretty much as if you were talking to a colleague already. So you give the impression of a person, like you are on the same page and you are already on their team. So try to ask more questions and try to turn the interview into a conversation when both of you are speaking and asking each other questions. Now, about asking questions, let me show you some good questions to ask during the job interview. First of all, you can ask the interviewer about the company's culture, right? You can show your portfolio. So you can say, can I show you my portfolio? You can ask to meet the team. Can I meet the team? Also, you can ask them if they can show you what project you would be working on. So these questions, they really make you sound interested in the job, in the company, and in the project. And I'm pretty sure the interviewer will really appreciate those questions. Plus, you will show that your level of soft skills is really high. You're not afraid to have a conversation. You are prepared. They will definitely want to work with you, I'm pretty sure. Leverage small talk when in a job interview. There are some things that can help you nail your job interview right at the beginning of it. They are pitching yourself right, remember about your personal elevator pitch, and making small talk with the interviewer before you get down to real business. Before you get down to real job interview questions. So what is small talk in the first place? Small talk, this is unimportant and easy conversation before you get down to business. Small talk, this is the conversation that you make with people you know well and people who are strangers, like the job interviewer, he or she, you don't know them, but you can still make a conversation with them just to break the ice, right? So technically small talk helps you to break the ice. And at the beginning, you should start with, of course, asking how they are. How is it going? How are you? You're answering the question. If they are the first to ask you the question, you have to answer the question. For example, you can say, I'm doing good. And then don't forget to ask them back. That's important. So if I'm your interviewer and I say, how is it going? And you say, I'm doing good. What about you? And I say, great, thank you for asking. And then you say, pleasure to meet you. And I, for example, answer likewise. The biggest mistake that a lot of non-native English speakers make when they come in for the job interview, they fail to make this initial conversation with an interviewer. When the interviewer is asking a simple question, how are you? And you like, frozen and you like, no, I'm not so bad or some things like that. Don't say that. Don't say that you're nervous. Don't say that something bad happened. Just use a cliche phrase. I'm doing good. What about you? I'm doing great. Nice to meet you. And then you proceed with small talk. For example, if you come for an interview in the office, you can compliment them on their office. You can say, you have a lovely office, and I'm pretty sure the interviewer will respond to that, and you can have a conversation. You can expand. For example, you can say, oh, wow, that's a nice painting, for example, on the wall. If your interview is online, don't worry, you can also compliment what you can see in the video. For example, that's a nice poster behind you. What is it? Is it a famous art or something like that, right? So this is the easiest way to make small talk. Just talk about what you see. A lot of people will talk about the weather, that's fine. A lot of people will talk about the places, like locations, like, so where are you now? Where are you based? It's very common also. But be prepared that people will either talk about what they see, office, surrounding, talk about locations, where you come from, where you are now, talk about the weather, what's the weather is at where you're now, etc. So those are like 3 most popular topics to cover during the small talk part of your job interview. Remember, maintaining small talk is crucial because at the very beginning, you show your communication skills level. You show that you are aware of what small talk is. You can make small talk easily, and you are quite outgoing personality, and you feel confident when speaking English even before you get down to a real job interview question. So if you are able to maintain small talk at the very beginning of your job interview, you will be able to break the ice and build rapport with the interviewer, which is definitely put you in a better position now when you proceed with real questions than if the ice was still there between you and the interviewer. Now, think about what kind of questions or what kind of comments you would make as a part of your small talk during a job interview. So write down the phrases, write down the sentences that you will use with the interviewer when making small talk. For example, when you want to talk about the setting, what is around the speaker, when you want to talk about the weather, and also when you want to talk about locations. Remember, you don't have to ask them questions. You can just make comments. Like in my example here, you can say, you have a lovely poster behind you. What is it, right? So like you don't have to tell me, what is the poster behind you? No, you make a comment and then you can ask the question. Or sometimes you don't even have to ask the questions because they will start speaking about the thing that you mentioned right away. So now your task is 3 situations: surrounding behind the person or the office, the weather, and the location. Think about how you would speak about those things and share with me, of course.
Hi there! Today we're going to speak about a very important thing that you need to know and actually that you need to do when applying for a job. You know, once you have chosen a job that you want to apply for, you need to send your CV, right, to your potential employer. However, you should remember that alongside CV, you should accompany your CV with the cover letter. What is a cover letter? Have you ever heard the word? The combination, a cover letter. A cover letter, this is an email. Well, it used to be a letter, but now it's an email that you send alongside your CV talking about your qualifications and why you are the best fit for the job. So technically a cover letter, this is the introduction, this is your introduction, this is your personal elevator pitch that you send to a hiring manager when sending your CV. Another time when you would use a cover letter is when you want to study at an American university or European university. You also need to write a cover letter. This like a motivational letter. Sometimes it is also called a motivational letter. But anyway, we're talking about jobs in tech, and we're talking about cover letters that you would have to send out with your CVs when applying for a job. And you know what? I would say that in the English-speaking world, in the USA, for example, it is impossible to apply for a job without sending a cover letter. And I even know that American universities, they even offer free courses to their graduate students to teach them how to write cover letters. Because like I said, it's a must thing to do. However, I know that in other countries, for example, in Eastern Europe, cover letters may not be always required, but I've noticed a recent trend that more and more companies, they ask you to write a cover letter in English. So let me tell you how to write a cover letter in English. So my top tips for writing a cover letter. Number one, of course, you need to write the letter as any other email, right? So you should have a greeting, you should have the introduction, yeah, you should have the body, and you should have the signing off part of the letter. And remember that in tech, right, your cover letter may be more formal or less formal, right? So you can stick to a formal style or less formal style. We've talked about different types of emails or different styles of emails in our IT emailing lesson here on the course. So if you need to brush up on that, go and watch this lesson again. Alrighty, so if you want to be more formal when writing a cover letter, you can start with something like dear, right? If you want to be less formal, you can say hello. Okay, now in a few sentences, when you start writing your cover letter, you need to explain why you are a great fit for this specific role. So that is why, please, there's one thing to remember. You should never, ever use the same cover letter for different job applications, right? So you need to write a cover letter specifically for the role you're applying for. So in your cover letter, you should state why you're excited about the job and the company, right? So you should show that you are excited about the job and the company. And also you have to show how the job matches your career goals, right? Also in 1 or 2 paragraphs, again, your cover letter shouldn't be super long, yeah? So make it average, so that's, people don't get tired reading it. So in 1 or 2 paragraphs, connect your past accomplishments with the requirements listed in the job description. Again, cover letter, it is not just purely the description of your professional life. A cover letter, this is a description how you match the job you're applying for. So you should always keep this in mind when writing a cover letter. So you have to focus on the most relevant experience and qualifications and skills that you have that match the requirements listed in the job description. Also, if it is possible, try to quantify your accomplishments, right? So it's a good idea that you show numbers, right? Show them data, show them your results in numbers. That would be awesome. And just avoid repeating the bullet points from your resume. Remember, they will read your resume. You don't need to copy paste the same information in your cover letter, okay? So make it different, right? You can, of course, you will be talking about the same qualifications, but the wording should be different. And now, since you've described the most important part of your cover letter, now you have to close by thanking the employer for their time and consideration, right? So I will give you some cliche phrases that you can use. Don't worry, okay? So we will get down to practicing in just a minute. You may also want to sum up your qualifications here once again, right? And also you can summarize it by showing the interest in continuing to the next stage of the job interview. So we can state that, like, I'm very excited to go to the next stage of the job interview. When is a good time for us to do this, or something like that? Okay, so those are the most important tips. But like I said, I would probably narrow it down to just one tip. Remember, your cover letter is unique for the job, for the specific role that you're applying for, right? Do not recycle the same cover letter for different jobs, because you may even look a little bit silly and stupid, if you use the same letter and it doesn't match the requirements, it doesn't exactly match the requirements of the job you're applying for. So be careful about that. Now, let me show you an example of a cover letter for a software engineer position. Okay, so like I said, if you want to be a little bit more formal, you can start your cover letter with "Dear," yeah? Hiring manager is not really a good idea. I wanted to highlight this information here. It is better if you find out the name of the person you write in the cover letter to. If it's impossible, then you can say "Dear hiring manager." But if it's possible, go out of your way to find the name of the person you write in this cover letter to. Trust me, this is much better than just starting your cover letter with "Dear hiring manager." All right, now remember, you have to show that you are excited about the role, right? So you say, I'm excited to be applying for the software engineer position at, for example, RiverTech. Right, I again wanted to highlight the expression "I'm excited," and throughout the email you will see that the person is using a lot of such phrases like "I'm excited," "I'm thrilled," "I'm eager." You see, people like native speakers don't say "I'm interested." This is what non-native speakers like to say, like, "I'm interested in this position." No, "I'm excited," "I'm thrilled," "I'm eager," right? Again, if you want to translate these phrases into your native language, they will sound awkward. But in English, they sound great, okay? So instead of saying "I'm interested," say "I'm excited." Instead of saying "I'm interested," say "I'm thrilled," "I'm eager." All right, next one. As someone who is highly focused and attentive to detail, so you see probably in the job, they required somebody with the good eye for detail. So the person specifies this at the very beginning. Attentive to detail, I thrive on building quality system that surpass and end user users' expectations, right? So, so the person here highlights the most important qualifications, not qualification, the most important things that they are looking for. It's eye for detail and quality, quality in what you do. I have also highlighted some interesting phrases that will be useful for you, so you can write them down in your vocabulary list, right? Like surpass end user expectations. It means exceed end users expectations, right? Surpass means do more than they expect. And then he says, I'm thrilled at the opportunity to show off my technical expertise. Another interesting phrase that you might as well put down on your list here, show off my technical expertise. It means that you want to boast your technical expertise and leadership skills as part of RiverTech's expert team, right? So in the very first paragraph, you have to highlight and you have to show how excited you are about the position, and this is what you say. Actually, you don't have even like to write so much. You can just say one sentence where you express your excitement. That's it. And then remember, the next paragraph or two, in my case the two paragraphs, you talk about how your qualifications match the requirements described in the job description there. And also you talk about most relevant for the job, not everything, right? Like again, don't talk about all your past experiences. Yeah, talk about most relevant ones for the job here. So he says, during my previous role, so talk about your past accomplishments and how they match with the present here, yeah? During my previous role at the Crane & Jenkins, I was charged with developing innovative solutions across a variety of software platforms. Again, here, I'm not gonna tell you what to write here, because depending on your job and experience, you will have to write a different thing. But remember, as a part of this lesson, your task is to write a cover letter. So feel free to write a cover letter for a job that you would potentially like to apply for, and we will be happy to read it on the course and give you our feedback, okay? Alrighty, so I was instrumental in developing mobile-ready expense tracking software for our fast-growing portfolio of real estate clients. In 2016, I led the development of a proprietary document management system. So you see, if you want to talk about your leadership experience, you can say, I led the development, right? If you were leading the team, yeah? Also, you can say, I was responsible for the successful migration of all client content from our legacy system to the new platform. I was responsible for. And like I said, I am underlining useful expressions that you can use when writing your cover letter. Then I'm also attentive to the need for continued process improvements. Again, so if you want to talk about the fact that you care to improve something, you can use this expression, right? I'm attentive to the need, or I always look into the need for continued process improvements. So if you're talking about improving processes on the team. When we face repeated, and then the person is describing a certain situation, it's better to describe a situation that will show the problem and how you solved it. And this is what the person does. Instead of just like saying, I'm great, I'm good, I can do this, show what you did, and let the person judge and let the person decide how expert you are, yeah? All right, so when we faced repeated deadline delays due to the quality assurance challenges, I proposed and carried out the implementation of an automated bug tracking system. So you see, there was a problem, delays, there was a solution, and this is what I did. And then the most important part here, the person lists results in numbers here, right? So this resulted in an average of 43% fewer defects reported during late stage QA reviews and a 32% reduction in days between project kickoffs and product launch. So I would say that this paragraph best shows the qualifications and experience that the person has, because the person used a little bit of a storytelling technique, right? because the person described the problem, the solution, and gave results in numbers. So that's fantastic. And now you wrap up your cover letter, and this is what you say. You thank the person for their time and consideration. So you say, thank you for your time and consideration. That's a cliche phrase. So just like put it down, in your notebooks and use it next time you need to write a cover letter. I'm looking forward to learning more details about the software engineer position at River Tech. Again, I'm excited about it. See, I'm interested, not I want. I'm excited about the opportunity to leverage my unique range of skills. I would highly recommend you use this phrase as well. Opportunity to leverage my unique range of skills. Leverage my skills means to use my skills at their fullest, right? So like to use my skills to solve different problems, right? And I'm eager to demonstrate. I'm eager, it means like I want it very much, right? I'm eager to demonstrate my commitment and development world-class software solutions for River Tech. So technically then you sign off sincerely. In this email I use sincerely because the greeting is dear hiring manager, right? If your greeting is hello, for example, then you can wrap up your letter with regards, for example, and sign your name there. Okay, so this should be a good template for your cover letter, and I would like you to use some fixed phrases, some cliche phrases from this cover letter, and use the structure that I have introduced in this cover letter. Again, your cover letter does not have to be exactly like this one. It can be shorter. Actually, I would say that even like shorter the better. It's just important to relate to the most relevant experience that you've had and that match with the job description here, and that's basically it. Now it's time to get down to practice, to get down to business and to get down to practice. Use this template and write your cover letter. But first, remember that you write a cover letter for a certain job role, right? So that is why I want you to find a job that you might be interested in applying for and write a cover letter for this particular job. I mean, if you're not looking for a new job, but if you are looking for a new job, you have that job description already. So write this cover letter specifically for this job role. And of course, feel free to share your cover letters and get mentors' feedback on your cover letter.